Assalamu alaikum, everyone, and thank you for joining us. This is Humanity Auxilium's Gaza Medical Relief Update, and we will be listening shortly from our physician volunteer, Dr. Razan Al-Nahas, who will be providing us with a glimpse of how the current situation is in Gaza. We are honored to be a women-led organization hosting this webinar on International Women's Day. And I would also encourage you to please post your questions in the chat box so that we can get to them at the end of the seminar. We'll try our best to get to them at the end. Okay. I'm Dr. Messina Chakladder, and I'm the board chair of Humanity Auxilium Canada. Our counterpart, Humanity Auxilium USA, is a registered charity. It has the 501c3 registration, and we have been operating in US and Canada for at least a few years, since 2018. Our mission is to provide medical relief in crisis zones and also to work towards building local, sustainable healthcare. Our founder and board chair, Dr. Fawzia Alvi of Humanity Auxilium USA, she and all the board members do not draw any salary from the organization. We are volunteers. We volunteer our time and personal resources because we believe in the mission of our organization, and we trust in its ability to deliver in the most difficult places of the world. Our organization has been built on service, sacrifice, and amana. Today, you will hear from Dr. Fawzia Alvi, who will go through an executive summary of Humanity Auxilium's relief work in the last 2 years. And also we will hear from Dr. Razan Al-Nahas live from Gaza. Our volunteer physician, Dr. Salman Khalid, will also join us live from Toronto, Canada. Our long-term supporter and volunteer, Mr. Fahim Khwaza, is here, and he will be volunteering today at the webinar. He is a wealth management advisor working with the second largest commercial global bank of America, and he's based out of Houston. So without any further ado, I will hand it over to Mr. Khwaza.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu. My name is Fahim Khwaja. I am a volunteer and a donor with Humanity Auxilium. It is an honor to stand before you today. As many of you know, there is a near total media blackout in Gaza. Journalists and cameramen face extreme danger. What you'll hear today is not filtered through headlines. It's a first-hand testimony. This session is meant to inform, to bear witness, and to connect our hearts to our responsibility. We will gently remind ourselves about obligation and blessing of zakat on Muslims, not as a fundraising tactic, but as amana. Zakat is not a charity. It is right of the poor people upon us. Allah says, and in their wealth was a known right for the one who asks and the one who's deprived.
Thank you so much, Mr. Khwaza. As you listen to our physicians who have served in Gaza, I hope you will get a clear picture of the ramifications of what has occurred in Gaza in the last 2.5 years, and what we need to do collectively to elevate some of the ongoing sufferings. So we will start with Dr. Fawzia Alvi, who is the first female Muslim physician to go to Gaza on medical relief mission back in February of 2024. And she's also the founder and board chair of Humanity Auxilium. Fawzia, you and I have worked in the last 9 years in this humanitarian realm, and to be very honest, Gaza is an anomaly. We couldn't have been prepared for this. It is an exception to any rule of law in the humanitarian work. Please let us know how humanitarian work is going on over there and how Humanity Auxilium faced obstacles while providing relief for the Gaza's genocide.
Sure, thanks, Messina. Assalamu alaikum and hello everyone. Thank you for joining us today. The world is on fire, both literally and metaphorically. But it gives me some hope to see that how few people at their individual capacity are working, are caring to make life livable for all the oppressed. Gaza humanitarian response remains a very futile landscape to navigate even after the ceasefire. I think the webinar would last 24 hours if I do a deep dive into the obstacles not just only Humanity Auxilium faced working in Gaza, but all the other international NGOs and even the foreign governments are facing. HA is in the medical relief sphere, so we work under the umbrella of WHO, and we are one of the handful of the organization with a clearance to deploy medical professionals to Gaza since 2024. It's been 2 years, and to this day, HA and the other international NGOs are asking for clarification from WHO on how to get medical supplies into Gaza with our healthcare workers so that they can do their work. We have surgeons on the roster whom we cannot deploy because our last one has his stethoscope confiscated at the border by Israeli customs. The expectations that we can send doctors to Gaza without medical supplies is in direct contradiction to WHO's own Red Book that clearly states that medical staff in crisis zones must be self-sustainable and not rely on local population. So HA has lost significant amount of money on the medical supplies that Israeli customs agents confiscate at the border. Our ultrasound probe, CT scan parts, and lots of other medical supplies. When international humanitarian laws are not followed, what we end up is sheer chaos, and this is exactly Israeli authorities manufactured in Gaza. So back in 2024, in the winter of 2024, HA received a green signal to send shelters to Gaza because 80% of the residential infrastructure has been destroyed. And so Israeli authorities only allowed UNHCR certified shelters to Gaza, and they are expensive, about $500. There was a catch in the permission, which was not made clear after the months of negotiation. The poles, that comes with the shelters, they were not allowed into Gaza, as they were declared to be of dual use. So the logistics of the shipment to Gaza is a nightmare. And since November of 2023, so first of all, we started with food and then medical supplies. So we have seen that the trucks are loaded with humanitarian aid with specification given by Israeli authorities, like how big the boxes can be, how big the pallets should be. And when these loaded trucks reach one of the assigned crossing into Gaza, the Israeli military changes all of a sudden the required dimensions. So what we end up with is the loaded trucks have to return to either Jordan or Cairo, and then cargo has to be repackaged. So much aid actually has been rotten at the borders due to these deliberate tactics, while small children are starving on the other side of the border inside Gaza. This is just like one example of how the Israeli authorities put a chokehold on organizations who are trying to help inside Gaza. I can sit here and narrate all the obstacles we have faced, but I want to focus on our accomplishment despite the hurdles. Here, I want to point out that our executive director, Dr. Faiza Hussain, has done exceptional work in navigating the complexities of the humanitarian work in Gaza. It's a real blessing to have someone of her passion and intelligence work for HA. Dr. Hussain is our only full-time employee, and we have 2 part-time people assisting her. Our overhead is less than 5%. Until now, we have deployed 16 medical missions to Gaza. So we are required to submit patient data to WHO, so it helps them keep track of the numbers. I was looking over the numbers this morning, and it saddens me to look at these numbers, 300 plus surgeries and 42,000 patient consults that our teams have done. It was completely avoidable if it wasn't for the genocide. There are no universities in Gaza, so when our physicians go, they also teach medical students and residents. They do the training sessions, So we have managed last year in 2025, 3 departments at Rentisi Children's Hospital, which was the only functional pediatric hospital facility in 2025 for a population of 1 million children. Last year in August, when the UN declared a famine in Gaza, then we provided almost 300,000 US dollars of food aid to Gaza. For 2026, our main project is our rehabilitation projects, providing salary to the staff at the Wafa Rehab Hospital in Gaza City. But we also work in Bangladesh at the Rohingya camps, where we are going to start the pilot programs for the mass drug administration against scabies. And in Pakistan, as Pakistan has the world's 3rd highest prevalence for adult diabetes, we will be working for the prevention and treatment of diabetes in low-income communities. I know many of us feel that nothing we do is enough for Gaza or for any other crisis zone that HA operate in. But I want to remind everyone of a saying of our beloved Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him. If the final hour comes and if you have a shoot of a plant in your hand and it is possible to plant it before the hour comes, you should plant it. So even when the world feels overwhelming, we must keep planting what good we can, because every act of compassion is a small seed of hope for the future. Thank you everyone for listening.
Thank you, Dr. Alvi, for providing a summary of Humanity Auxilium's work in Gaza, even when progress seems insurmountable. And a reminder to everyone here that it is your generosity and continued donation that makes this life-saving work possible. But if you would like to take a screenshot for the future reference, Jazakallah, will move forward with our webinar.
Thank you, Fawzia, so much. It was very informative, and thank you, Brother Fahim. So now I would like to move on to Dr. Razan Al-Nahas, who is an emergency physician from US. She has been on medical mission at least twice with Humanity Auxilium, and she's been in Gaza since November of 2025 on medical relief. And prior to that, she was in Gaza for a couple of months in February of 2025. So she will be able to better give an account of the ever-changing landscape in Gaza as she was there in those 2 periods. Thank you, Razan, for joining us. I know you have had a long day of fasting and seeing patients. Please introduce yourself. Thank you so much for joining.
Thank you, Dr. Mahsina, and thank you all for having me. Hello and salam, everyone. My name is Razan Nahas. I am an emergency medicine physician, and for the past 3.5 months, I've been working inside Gaza on a medical relief mission with Humanity Auxilium. Every time I walk into the emergency department, I have no idea what we'll receive, whether it be a child who's fallen from a collapsing building, a patient dying from a treatable illness, or patients who were the victims of a drone explosion. So today I'm hoping to just share with you a little bit of what the reality is like on the ground in Gaza right now.
So how is the current geopolitical situation impacting people in Gaza today?
Well, the Rafah border only partially reopened on February 2nd after it had for almost 2 years. But then on March 1st, all crossings, including Rafah, were closed again following the airstrikes on Iran. And although the Kerem Shalom crossing partially reopened on Tuesday, the flow of aid is still extremely limited. Cooking gas had only just started entering Gaza again after almost 2 years. But now no cooking gas has entered Gaza for nearly 2 weeks. Humanitarian aid is coming in at far lower levels than what's needed, are not entering in any meaningful capacity. And as a result of the border closing, the border reopening, this instability, the price of basic foods, for example, like fruits and vegetables, has doubled, and many people simply cannot afford to buy food. They can't afford to buy hygiene items, clothing, and then add onto that the limited flow of aid. Many people are still suffering from a lack of basic life necessities. In addition, no humanitarian missions have been able to enter or exit Gaza since the strikes on Iran began. That means that humanitarian workers who have taken time off from work and were scheduled to enter Gaza have not been able to enter. And then the humanitarian workers who are currently in Gaza who have been scheduled to leave, they may have jobs waiting for them, their families waiting for them. They actually have not been able to leave. There was a group that was supposed to exit on Tuesday, and they've been delayed a week now, and we don't actually know if they will be entering and exiting or not. In addition, although people do refer to this period now as a ceasefire, from the perspective inside Gaza, it does not feel like one. There are still daily incidents, airstrikes, artillery shelling, gunfire, drone attacks that continue to cause civilian injuries and deaths, as well as damage to civilian infrastructure. We continue to receive patients at the hospital on an almost daily basis. Since the ceasefire in October 2025, 640 Palestinians have been killed in Gaza, and more than 1,700 have actually been injured. And currently, 58% of Gaza is under Israeli occupation, and they continue to slowly expand. The yellow line continues to slowly get shifted, and these attacks are happening in the coastal areas and along the eastern yellow line. But the majority of the civilian casualties are actually within the yellow line, areas that are supposed to be designated as safe areas. This picture here is of Amir, old boy that I saw in the ER. He was just sitting in his family tent in Jabalia when he was shot in the head. It's not like, there's anything going on. They're just sitting around, and out of nowhere, a gunshot directly to his head. They are in an area that is close to the yellow line. They're not beyond the yellow line. He's just one example of hundreds, unfortunately. And sadly, oftentimes the victims in these cases we see are children.
It's so difficult to see these images. It seems like the mass casualties have reduced slightly, but I understand patients are still pouring into the hospitals. What kind of conditions are people coming in with in the hospitals these days?
So yeah, you're right. The mass casualty incidents have essentially, since I've been in Gaza, I think there have been at Shifa Hospital maybe only 2 mass casualties, and in much smaller scale than what we were seeing before. The cases now we do see are isolated incidents, 1 or 2 patients come in at a time, or a lot of times they don't actually make it to the hospital. They actually die on the scene. But what we're seeing now is that patients in Gaza are really, really sick right now. They've had 2 years of neglected health without proper medical care, no access to medications, sanitation, clean water, adequate nutrition. Arriving to the hospital are already extremely ill. Young, previously healthy men, women, they come to the hospital with severe anemia, requiring blood transfusions. And these people were perfectly healthy before, and no one really understands why. They need to investigate still, but healthy people come in so sick. Many new diagnoses of cancer, so many patients in acute heart failure. It feels like every day there's at least like 10 to 15 patients in acute heart failure. So many patients presenting in sepsis because of severe infections. Even young patients, we've had several young patients in their 30s and 40s who come in cardiac arrest. And we just assume that they've had massive heart attacks. But most of the time, we're not even able to resuscitate them to confirm a diagnosis. I've been seeing patients dying of conditions that I know would be treatable elsewhere, and to the point where I've started questioning the effectiveness of the medications that are actually available. Because some of these patients come in, they're like, we're taking our medicine, but we're still getting sick. And I know for a fact that the majority of medications in Gaza right now are currently expired. But what's happening is the Ministry of Health has no other choice but to renew these medications. So there's even a question of whether or not these drugs are actually effective that patients are receiving. Here is of Yasmin. Yasmin is 15 years old, and she became infected with hepatitis A a few months ago, which I'm sure you've all heard has been so common throughout Gaza in the past 2 years due to lack of sanitation, access to clean water, clean food. But in her case, her illness was complicated by post-viral cardiomyopathy, which is a very, very rare complication of hepatitis A. So basically, her heart has failed, and and is functioning at less than half of normal capacity, meaning that her body just regularly fills up with fluid, including her lungs, to the point where she can't breathe. She's in the hospital every few days with very low oxygen levels and urgently needs to be transferred outside of Gaza for treatment. She likely will need a liver and a heart transplant. But there are more than 20,000 patients currently waiting in Gaza for medical evacuation. Only 123 patients were evacuated between February 18th and February 24th. Decided to actually do the calculation myself to see that at this current evacuation rate, how long it would take to get these 20,000 patients out, which every day this number is increasing. And it would take almost 3 years for some of these patients to be transferred. Yasmin does not have 3 years. Yasmin likely does not even have 3 months. Yasmin, along with so many other patients, if they are not urgently transferred, they will die. And we're seeing this on a regular basis, children, babies, all types of patients not surviving because they don't have access to proper care here. And unfortunately, they're not being evacuated in time. So now, while the health of people in Gaza has deteriorated over the past 2 years, we're also still seeing so many injuries and casualties that are not directly war related, but are secondary effects of the genocide. So people are living in what is left of their damaged homes. Half their home may have been damaged by an explosion. The other half is like barely standing, but they see it as a better alternative than living in a makeshift tent. And you see this even as, you're walking around, you see homes that look scary to even walk by, but then you see clotheslines. So, people are living there. You see clothing lines with people hanging their clothes to dry. These buildings collapse, and even more often than that, people fall from them, especially children. On a regular basis, we see so many children that are falling from these unsteady buildings with very severe injuries. We're also seeing so many burns. No one has hot running water, obviously, so they have to boil water for food, for drinking, for showering. And usually they do this by burning waste and plastic. So they'll have large pots of boiling water in overcrowded tents with no electricity. So what ends up happening? These young children actually end up falling into the pots. I've seen so many cases of this, and they come in with severe scald injuries. Sometimes, they're walking, they accidentally spill it. But I mean, it's unavoidable just given the situation. Even more dangerous are the fires that are being set either inside or right next to the tents. Are made of flammable materials. So we often receive patients from tent fires. A case that really kind of has been sticking with me, just 3 weeks ago, we received a young mother named Majd. She's 23 years old. She had started a small fire inside her tent to cook, and the tent caught fire. By the time she reached the hospital, she had second and third degree burns covering more than 60% of her body. Her 5-month-old baby, Bilal, was also brought in. Majd is still in the ICU, and every day she's worse than the day before. And severe burns typically do not survive in Gaza. I go and I check on her in the ICU almost every day. And every time I go, they're like, yeah, no, she's worse. We haven't seen anyone with these severe burns survive. So it's almost like a ticking time bomb. They're just waiting for her to pass. Bilal, her son, had burns to 50% of his body, but he also inhaled a lot of smoke and had severe burns to his airway. So he almost didn't make it because of the severe swelling. They had a really hard time placing a breathing tube, but thankfully, alhamdulillah, they were able to get the tube placed and he improved. And since then, the tube has been removed. The picture on the left is when he first came to the hospital. The picture on the right is more recent. It was really sad for me when I went to check on him a few days after the tube was removed. The nurses were telling me that he was really struggling to take the bottle at first. And it was just really hard to hear that, knowing that his mother was just a few floors away in another ICU. Just another devastating story of a child who will likely lose his mother among the thousands of children who've lost their parents over the past 2 years, unfortunately.
It's just, it breaks my heart. And I'm sure when you see it on a daily basis, it must be very difficult for you. You had the opportunity to go to Wafa Hospital. Razan, can you tell us and describe your experience there?
So there are thousands of patients in Gaza now living with severe injuries, including amputations, spinal cord injuries, brain injuries. And this is why rehabilitation centers like Al Wafa are so critical right now. According to the WHO, over 500 patients need intensive rehab services. Many of the patients I spoke to when I visited Al Wafa mentioned to me that they waited weeks, and majority of them often months before they could start rehabilitation services. But with injuries like spinal cord injuries, traumatic brain injuries, early rehab is so critical. And if therapy is delayed, patients can permanently lose the chance to regain mobility and independence. In this clip here, you see Khalil. He's a 14-year-old boy. He suffered a severe head injury from shrapnel, causing his right arm and leg to be paralyzed, and causing delayed cognition and speech. Just tent in Khan Yunis and waited 4 months until he was assigned a bed at Wafa, which is crazy. Like, he should have gone directly from the hospital to the rehabilitation facility. He waited 4 months. But thankfully, as you can see in the video, he is developing some movement of his arm, but truly his recovery would have been much better if he would have started rehab sooner. And this is the case with the majority of patients. They're missing that critical window, that acute phase post their injury, where they should have rehab immediately for the best chance of recovery. Wafa Hospital wants to be able to expand its services so that it can increase the number of inpatient beds to be able to accommodate more patients, especially during that acute phase for the patients. But they physically can't do that right now because they have a limited number of staff. The current staff that they have, they actually don't even have the means to pay them. So many of their staff have actually gone 3 to 4 months without pay. So Humanity Auxilium is actually planning to have this partnership with Al Wafa Hospital where they hire more staff and to pay their current staff, which will expand capacity for rehab and hopefully decrease the time that patients have to wait before being admitted. I think a really exciting project and one that's really important and necessary. Wafa Hospital is one of very few rehab centers in the entire Gaza Strip. I actually think in northern Gaza, if you want to call it northern Gaza, there's only 2, Wafa and Hamad, and they're both doing a lot of great work, but their capacity is just so limited right now. So anything that we can do to help expand their capacity.
Yeah, no, sounds like that's a very important project that we will be pursuing in the future. So, Razan, you have worked with Humanity Auxilium. You've been with us at least for 2 deployments, and you've worked with other organizations as well. Can you tell us your experience working and volunteering with us?
Yeah. So this is my second medical relief mission with Humanity Auxilium. The last time I was in Gaza with HA, I visited the Nantisi Pediatric Hospital, where HA was actually managing 3 departments there, and I was really impressed with the work that was being done. For me personally, one of the reasons I choose to work with Humanity Auxilium is their transparency. They're not raising money for a vague future project. They are raising funds for a specific, clearly defined program like the expansion of rehabilitation services at Al Wafa. Appreciate the way Humanity Auxilium operates, and it's really important for me to work with an organization that prioritizes the ethical delivery of medical relief, because unfortunately the NGO world is not the cleanest world. There's a lot of corruption, lack of transparency. I really value and I appreciate the transparency and the honesty that I've experienced with HA, alhamdulillah. I see patients every day in Gaza whose lives could be dramatically improved with the right medical care. And really, many of them are just waiting. They're just waiting to receive that care. And rehabilitation is one of the few interventions that can actually give people back independence after devastating injuries. And like I mentioned before, right now, there's simply not enough beds, there's not enough staff, there's not enough resources to treat everyone who needs it. So the project that Humanity Auxilium is fundraising for now would allow Al Wafa Hospital to expand its services, hire additional staff, and treat many more patients who are currently waiting. So just to everyone who's attended the webinar, I want to thank you first of all for attending. And if you decide to contribute, please know that your donation is not abstract. It will directly support patients here in Gaza who are fighting every day to rebuild their lives.
Thank you. Jazakallah, Dr. Al-Nahas. for providing such a detailed and touching narrative of life in Gaza, and for your trust in Humanity Auxilium to carry out the rehab project so our Palestinian brothers, sisters, and children can have a chance at life once again. Dear attendees, many of us will spend more in a month on food, coffee, or comfort than a family in Gaza will see an entire year of survival. Your donation, including zakat, just 2.5% of your wealth, can give the wounded in Gaza a chance at a life again.
Thank you, Brother Fahim, for the reminder. Now we will move on to our next physician, Dr. Salman Khalid. He's an emergency physician working in Toronto. He was deployed on his medical mission to Gaza for almost a month in September of 2024. And while seeing patients and mass casualties, he also kept a journal of his day-to-day encounters, and that journal has been published into a book. It is called Gaza, a Doctor's Diary. When you purchase this book, the proceeds will go to Humanity Auxilium's rehabilitation project, which Razan just mentioned, and as to how important that is. So welcome, Salman. Thank you so much for joining.
Greetings and assalamu alaikum, everyone. My name is Salman Khalid. I'm an emergency physician practicing in the Greater Toronto area in Canada. And as Mohsina alluded to, I served on a month-long medical mission in Gaza in 2024.
So, Salman, tell me what motivated you to keep a journal? Like, I'm sure you were exhausted seeing patients all day. And then what compelled you to turn it into a book and get it published?
So, number one, after seeing everything that we saw on our screens for the past year leading up to my medical mission, I wanted to do something a little bit different and share, stories from my colleagues, patients, and friends that I made in Gaza rather than just share pictures. So I thought it would be good to share my experience with my family and friends through daily journals and diaries. But then the other two reasons was that also, as you know, foreign journalists are banned in Gaza. And so I did understand from my colleagues who had entered previously that my responsibilities included documenting what I was seeing for a future time in which what we saw and what we witnessed this genocide would be potentially adjudicated. And obviously, the third reason that was really, really important is because it felt more important to me that to be a witness than even often a doctor at times. That sometimes the carnage we were seeing was too difficult to undo, and it was during those moments, especially, I found comfort in writing, knowing that was a greater purpose. With regards to why we published, so much of the credit of this has to go to Dr. Faiza Hussain, for two reasons. Before I left for Gaza, and before she, gave me the honor and the tremendous responsibility of serving in the medical mission, she made it clear. She's like, we're not just looking for people who are going to go do work and then disappear when they come home. We're looking for people to be a strong voice and advocate in our communities. So part of it was to keep a promise to Faiza. And secondly, it was actually Faiza, all credit to her, that when I returned, she was the one that decided and linked us up with Pluto Press, pretty much all of the initial legwork to connect us, and thought it would be really, really important. And I see the benefit of it now more than even before. And the reason for this is because over the last couple of years, we've seen a real concerted effort in mainstream media, corporate media, legacy media to dehumanize the Palestinians, to demonize them. And it's apparent to me now that hopefully the stories in this book of my patients, my friends, my colleagues will be sort of my and our way of sort of fighting back against this dehumanization that we've seen in media. So I encourage everyone to pick up a copy, share it with their friends, families who are in the know, who aren't in the know, mainly to fight that fight.
No, that's very important to say what you've seen, and also to advocate for the people who are, still struggling and left behind. That is, also part of our work here at Humanity Auxilium. That was your first mission. How was your experience volunteering with Humanity Auxilium?
So it was incredible. I can't say enough nice things. I think Razan summed it up wonderfully when she said, it's prioritization of ethical delivery of healthcare. And then number two, just the transparency. It's not abstract. Whenever you donate to Humanity Auxilium, even working on the ground, we can see the tangible benefits as a healthcare team there. The organization as well prepared the medics incredibly well to follow standard operating procedures. I had another mission that I attempted to get into Gaza last October with another NGO. It was unsuccessful, not meant to disparage any organizations, but I will say though that the prep work that the HA did in order to get us entry into Gaza was superior. And the support and the logistics on the ground that they supported us to do our work was top notch. It's the best way that I can describe it is it's an organization, it's a small organization, but it's filled with an incredible amount of barakah and blessing to those of our friends who are listening right now. It's just, yeah, your money goes a long way when you donate.
Thank you, Dr. Khalid, for your advocacy for the people of Gaza. Brothers and sisters, we have heard testimonies. We have seen the reality. Now we must ask ourselves, what is our role? Allah tells us, and establish prayer and give zakat. Zakat is not optional charity, it's an obligation. It is purification. It is protection for our wealth. The Prophet ﷺ said, charity does not decrease wealth. In moments like this, zakat becomes life savings. It becomes surgery, equipment, it becomes antibiotics, it becomes clean water, it becomes shelter. When you give your zakat through Humanity Auxilium, you're giving through a US 501c3 nonprofit. Our financials are audited. Our chair, Dr. Fawzi Alvi, and board do not take a salary. They're 100% volunteers. They give their own time and wealth before asking anyone else. That means your zakat is protected, it is honored, it is delivered. Today, do not delay. Don't say later. Don't assume someone else will do it. Maybe one of the du'as of a mother of Gaza will carry your name to Allah. Give your zakat. Give beyond your zakat if you can. Automate your sadaqah. Sponsor ongoing relief. This is not just aid. This is your accountability before Allah. Before we conclude, let us raise our hands and our hearts for a dua. Ya Allah, you are Al-Adl, the most just. You are Ar-Rahman, the most merciful. Ya Allah, relieve the suffering of people of Gaza. Grant healing to the injured. Grant patience to the families. Grant safety to the doctors and aid workers. Ya Allah, accept the efforts of Humanity Auxilium. Accept the sacrifices of our volunteers. Put barakah in every dollar given. Multiply it beyond what we can imagine. Ya Allah, do not make us among those who turn away when our brothers and sisters call for help. Make our wealth a means of salvation for us, not a source of regret on the day of judgment. Ameen. Brothers and sisters, please give your zakat and donation tonight. Please support this work. Please continue beyond tonight. The need is ongoing. The magnitude of the relief work is massive, and our responsibility is ongoing. Jazakumullah khairan. May Allah make this gathering heavy on your scale of hasanat.
Thank you, Brother Fahim. Thank you, Salman. As we're coming to the end of this webinar, I would like to go to the chat box and see if we can have any questions. So the first question is for Dr. Faiza Hussein. How can people get into Gaza? Isn't there a blockade?
Yes, Assalamu alaikum and hello everyone. There is indeed a blockade. So Humanity Auxilium has been certified through World Health Organization, WHO, since 2024 to send medics to Gaza. So at the moment, we are one of only 22 organizations that can do this. And so we have been doing this since 2024. We have sent 16 medical missions. We have, like a lot of other organizations, every now and then we have cancellations, denials. They're not cancellations, they're denials by Israeli authorities. And majority of those denials are for surgeons. Surgeons have a really high denial rate. We are talking upwards of 52%. And there's a reason for that, because surgeons are the most needed specialty there right now, and even before the ceasefire. As far as medical supplies, I think Fawzia touched base on that. Medical supplies, to this day, we have not had a clarification from WHO. How do we get medical supplies in? We're meeting again on March 11th now to see how we can send medical supplies in, because when our physicians go in, they have to have supplies in order to do the work there, as there's constantly a shortage of supplies at the hospital. I can tell you, like, we've had surgeons go in who did not have surgical gowns to do surgeries. So sometimes the operating theater is closed for a couple of days and nobody can have a surgery, even though they need it. It's critical. So we've had surgeons work, they've basically tied around clean plastic trash bags that they could find to do the surgery. So this is how we get medics in. As far as aid is concerned, when we sent aid, we sent it back in 2025 fall, at a time when UN declared a famine in Gaza in August of 2025. At that time, there were only 2 organizations that could take aid in. One was the UN sister agency, World Food Program, and the other one was World Central Kitchen. So we did partner. We had to partner up. There was no other way to get food aid in. And we sent about $300,000 worth of food aid through that program with World Food Program. It's a battle. It's not easy, but someone has to fight it. So we're all here, all of our delegates, our board, we as an organizations, and especially our donors, for having this faith in us too. Because I will tell you, nothing happens unless we have money to do it. And so without donations, our work, it just doesn't move forward. There's no progress. So I truly do appreciate all the donations that we receive. And as you have heard our delegates, there's a lot of transparency here. And if you're a donor and you have a question, I'm always available, almost 24/7. I answer via text message a lot of questions. So if you need to get in touch with me, there's a number on the screen right now. It's for my assistant, Mary Magia, but she will transfer the call to me.
Thanks, Faiza. I know you don't sleep, but thank you for your dedication. The next question is, if you have $1 million, how will you utilize it in Gaza? So maybe, Fawzia, I will let you take that question.
So I was touched in our recent event in Houston when someone came into me in the break time and asked me, if you have more funds, what you will do. And nobody has ever asked in the last many, many years since I started this organization. So subhanAllah, I was touched. And then I said that there's a long wish list. So my wish list is to extend this Wafa rehab services for an additional 6 months. So this is number 1 wish list, because those children's right now, Gaza is the highest amputees children in the modern history. If we can give them some tools, so it will help them to learn how to live again. So that is my number 1 wish list. Next one is our pregnant women and nursing women in Gaza. We want to provide the nutritional supplements. And so it's about $250K. And the third one is we would love to restart our primary healthcare clinic for 1 year. And the cost is about $276,000 US. So we did back in 2024, we were running primary healthcare clinics, but they keep on getting bombed. So we're moving it from place to place. And in 2025, we just could not do it. So we supported in other ways, like in Rentisi Hospital and the food. But right now, we would love to start another primary healthcare center.
Perfect. Thank you, Fawzia. Another question is, how many hospitals are operating in Gaza right now? Razan, will you be able to answer that?
I can't give you the, it's okay.
Yeah.
I can't give you the exact number right now, but what I can say is that none of the hospitals that are fully operational. All of the hospitals are only partially functioning. And as far as major hospitals that are operating right now, you have Shifa Hospital, you have Nasser, Aqsa, Indonesian Hospital, which was a major hospital, obviously out of service. European hospitals out of service. Then beyond those, you have, smaller private hospitals. They became just like any other hospital. People would just go to whatever was available, and they were staffed and supported by the Ministry of Health. But now a lot of these hospitals are trying to go back to their original prior kind of setup of being private hospitals. So, each of these hospitals may only specialize or work in a certain field. For example, right now in the Gaza city area, and I think in the entire Gaza Strip, the only hospital that is doing cardiac catheterizations is Al-Quds Hospital, the only hospital. And they're only doing them on an elective basis. So if a patient comes into the ER and they've had a massive heart attack right now and they need to be rushed to a cath lab, it's not going to happen. You also have field hospitals that are still operational and working, and then you have a bunch of primary care clinics. I think just last month, a month and a half ago, there was a cardiothoracic surgeon that came and did the first CABG, like open heart surgery, since prior to the war. And it was just by sheer miracle that they were able to get some of the supplies in and perform just a few of these surgeries while this doctor was here in Gaza. But since then, they haven't been able to continue this. Most of the infrastructure is damaged. The building that we're working out of was barely damaged. The rest of the major buildings are they're completely destroyed. They're completely damaged. Like, to walk through them, and I have walked through them. I mean, it's scary. You feel like you need like a hard hat because anything could just fall at any moment. So every single hospital in Gaza was targeted. Every single hospital in Gaza experienced some type of damage, and at some point had to either shut down or was not able to operate. So the health system really has taken a
Huge hit. Yeah. Yeah, no, seems like you don't not only need specialists, but definitely the supplies. Otherwise, how are the specialists going to, operate and treat?
There are several surgeons currently from other NGOs at Shiva Hospital with me right now. And every day we sit down and we talk about, their experiences and their struggles, and they're all struggling because they're here to work. They want to provide a service, but they're not able to because they're like, we don't have supplies. I want to do this specific surgery for this patient, but I can't because I don't have the supply. I'm not able to bring the supply in. No one else can bring the supply in. So the patient ultimately doesn't get the care that they need, not because of the lack of experience or the lack of physicians, but because of the lack of supplies.
Yeah, no, it sounds very heartbreaking. The next question is, share a story when you felt that it was your last day and you might not make it out of here. So Salman, do you have something to share along those lines?
No, alhamdulillah, when we were there was never a time where I felt I was in personal danger. It's kind of a baseline danger. A couple of times there were rocket and missile attacks that landed within about 100 to 200 feet outside the hospital grounds. So in the designated humanitarian safe zone. It didn't affect us personally, but you could hear the loud sound, the fire in the aftermath, and then the mass casualties coming in at that point. Yeah, no, alhamdulillah, I can't share a personal story where I felt this way.
I see. No, that's very good. But I do understand working under these situations is probably very stressful. But that's great that it wasn't directly impacting your work. Fawzia, do you have a story to share?
Yeah, so we stayed when I went there, like in very beginning, February of 2024. We stayed mostly in Rafah. So we stayed in one of the clinic in Tal Al Sultan area, and so there were four of us. We were sharing one room, and the last night in Gaza, I thought that this is the last night of my life. This is, because the bombing was so close, and literally we can see from our windows. And every time when the bomb was falling around us, the walls were shaking. And so one thing that, and Razan knows more, when I was there, I learned that every person in Gaza at that time, they were making the wudu at nighttime, and they were going to sleep wherever they had find the space, like inside the hallways of the hospitals or outside in the street, because they knew that they may not wake up next day, so they may get killed. So the women were properly wearing full dresses, covering their head. So I had the habit of making wudu at that time. So and that night I was praying, and my 20-year-old son also went with me. So I thought that, two of us from our family will die. So the second one, we had two incidents. Second one was in Khan Yunis in European Gaza hospital. So we were there, and at that time we were just talking with the local teams there, and there was a loud explosion just outside the hospital in the courtyard. And we looked at each other, and so we stood up, and it was like there was a couple of moments. But when I think about those moments, I think about the Palestinians who are living in this situation for 2.5 years. Every single day, bombing never stops. Even we call it so-called ceasefire.
Yes, it is very difficult for our Gazan brothers and sisters because, our medical mission ends and then we come back to the comfort of our homes, but they are, still there. But, we're trying our best to do everything in our capacity to help them for sure. As we are coming to the end of this webinar, I would like to emphasize that we're so privileged that we have the financial means to donate. When I went to the Rohingya camps during my last mission, I met these young women and girls who were making these showpieces of the Palestinian flag and the Al-Aqsa Mosque, and they made it with beads so that they could sell it. So I asked them, why were you making it? So they said that we want to sell it and collect the funds and send it to Gaza. So for a few seconds, I was stunned. I'm like, why will you send it to Gaza? Then they said that we understand exactly what they're going through. So these women have gone through a genocide themselves and they've lost so much. So if they can donate, then what excuse do I and you have not to help? So I will encourage you to share our platform or share our ideas with your friends and in your social media, and also to advocate for these people. So I would like you to write and email to your elected officials to end this senseless wars that are going on and to stop these dictatorial regimes which are wreaking havoc in a mass scale. This is very important, and this is also part of our duty, which is not only to donate, but to advocate for the people who are suffering for no fault of their own. Thank you so much today for joining us. I would like to thank Razan, Fawzia, Salman, Brother Fahim, and also to our viewers and our donors. Without you, we wouldn't be doing what we're doing. And thank you for your support in this. Thank you.